Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Um, we are happy to part of the ESI Digital Spring today. So I'm really proud to be here. And on my side, I have lovely Christine. Hello, Christine.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Cool to have you here. As you can see on screen, Christine from DHL, Head of Global Sponsorships, and myself, I'm Stefan Schröder from ESL, SVP for Global Brand Partnerships. So the idea is today that we shed a little bit of light on our partnership between DHL and ESL. I think it's one of our famous partnerships, and it's lasting since 2018. So it's really cool. But we would like to give you a little bit more insights, and mainly Christine is, I think, one of the person who has really drives this sponsorship since the last years. And so I have a couple of questions, and hopefully we come into the details and bring you a little bit up to speed with what is so cool in this sponsorship. Christine, what do you think since 2018, from your point of view, what makes these engagements so successful?
Well, Stefan, and thank you for asking that. For me, personally, it's a very special partnership because I launched it. And actually, since 2017, I had no clue about sponsorship, about esports. And then I visited the Gamescom, the big games fair in Cologne, and I was absolutely impressed about it. And I thought about myself, we have to go there. We have to go that route. So what makes it so special and what makes that engagement so successful? So firstly, I think that esports per se fits into nowadays. Yeah? Companies are talking a hell amount of time about digitalization and innovation. Generation Z is becoming more and more important. And I think we did it somehow right from the early beginning. And I need to say that maybe the story behind is that we very much listened to what ESL as a partner told us, because with our traditional marketing approach, I think we would have failed. So we made it that we achieved a lot of excitement by the fans, that they love the DHL brand. With a sort of joint creativity with our partner ESL and our own guys, and the freedom to do new things, because that's, I think, the beauty of that platform is that we can be even more creative than we are in our traditional platforms. And we have some innovations in place, like the EFI where you see a lot of pictures there with our little cute little van that we actually use in our warehouses, maybe not in the same design, but somehow like that. We really made it to tell an authentic story, and we added value to fans, and they really appreciated that. So a lot of native integration, and we established means. But the most important thing that helped us to make it a successful partnership is that authenticity. We had to tell our story, and I think we did that very, very well.
Yeah, cool. Sounds fantastic. I can imagine you are a partner of a lot of classical sponsors in the last, I think, decades.
Mm-hmm.
And is there a big difference? So how do you have to communicate an innovative engagement in esports in comparison maybe to classical sponsorships that you have as well for Formula One or Formula E? Is there a big difference?
Oh, it is. It is definitely, yeah. So firstly, when we've launched the partnership in 2018, I had to tell the board members about my excitement about that topic, and had to tell them what is esport all about. And to be honest, at that point of time, they had no clue. They had no clue, and I saw a lot of question marks in their eyes. And finally, and I'm very happy about that, they trusted in us and said, okay, the next generation is an important topic for us. So go there, test it out. And with their buy-in, I think we are where we are right now. DHL, from a historical point of view, is a B2B company, and we still are B2B. But thanks to e-commerce, we are breaking up somehow to B2C as well. And that's exactly what we do in that fan communication. It's a purely B2C communication. And especially in esports, in comparison to traditional sports, we have to translate the story. We are preparing and activating for the fan audience. We have to translate it back to our B2B world. And I think that's also a challenge, but that's also the beauty of it, that we can tell or have two activation angles, so to say. And also for the B2B world, and that's mostly sales driven in our company, we can establish a really compelling storytelling, especially with the background that we are running the logistics for ESL events, and hopefully we do that soon again. But this also helps us to establish that authentic storytelling, not only for the fan community, but also for our business community. And finally, I think that the potential for employer branding is very well recognized in our company, especially as a big chunk of our jobs is digitally related. Stefan, can you still hear me?
Maybe a little bit naive question, but you have to explain to this esport why it's such an engagement. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, please go on.
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Christine, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm still there.
Oh, okay, sorry. I think I'm freezed. I'm freezed a little bit, but can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Yeah,
I can hear you.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
I think that's the most asked and answered question nowadays.
Okay, I try again. I'm just curious. You told us that you are talking to the. Okay, right. Question. You told us that you have to explain members what is esports and what is it cool. Is there a big interest then? Or do you get every question from CEO? Imagine how esports is perceived in the organization.
Well, it's very, very well perceived. So that's first of all. So it really is an accepted partnership, and it's on eye level with all our big global traditional sports partnerships. And amongst employees, you can imagine that we have a lot of young employees in our company, and they love the partnership. For example, we have several esports tournaments running internally, and certainly we can fully leverage that from our perspective as well. Also, for a funny story from a business perspective, is that, for example, one of our activation elements, which is a VR game we normally make use of at live events, it's the DHL box stacker game, and our DHL supply chain colleagues are using that activation tool in their introductions to warehouse processes. So whenever they have new employees in place and they need to introduce them to their work, tasks, then they make use of that VR game. So all the tools we are developing in the realm of the partnership are being used in the wider business as well. Yeah. And when I look into an annual survey we run amongst our employees, we always receive really high likability scores. It's amongst the top 2, and I think that comes back to on par, on eye level with our traditional partnerships. Yeah.
Cool. So that means you are doing a lot internally to really get your stakeholders internally on board. Um, I would like to come to a different aspect. I think what is always different in esports is that engagements are developing over time. Of course, in traditional sports, I think it's the same, but in esports, especially, I have the feeling that when I take a look at your engagement, there are some big steps in comparison to 2 years ago. So, can you describe a little bit how this engagement evolves and what do you see if you think about what we are doing right now together in comparison maybe to 2018 or 2019?
I would say it's getting more and more holistically, and I just described how our board members reacted when I firstly introduced them to that partnership, and nowadays it's more that we can be brave, even more brave. We have a lot of would say opportunities to raise the creative potential of esports, and we do that more consistent over time. Maybe that's the best or the most important development over time, because for example, and it's still an ongoing discussion in a lot of brands, I would assume, but at the early beginning, we agreed on, yes, we want to be part of Counter-Strike. And then after some months, the discussion came up, is that the right way? Do we want to see our brand being visible in Counter-Strike in-game, on in-game material? And it was quite a large discussion then, and everybody was involved somehow. Employees on the one hand, board members on the other hand. And then we somehow said, okay, we wait a moment, let's go out of the in-game branding, but overall, from a storytelling aspect, let's activate the Counter-Strike community. Nowadays, it's not a question at all anymore. It's so well accepted that especially Counter-Strike, is part of the in-game ecosystem. And we don't need to discuss it from scratch once again. So now I would say we are back on track entirely when it comes to Counter-Strike. So we have more, trust in the company to run it and leverage it to its full extent. However, on the other hand, when I say what's performing on eye level with other traditional partnerships, the expectation is much higher now. The expectation in regards to how we activate the partnership, to come up with new compelling ideas, to tailor the communication for the various target groups. It's just not one communication that fits with fans, but also to the B2B community. We are more asked to tailor it far away or further. And finally, also measurement is becoming more and more important, because certainly brands need to talk about a return on invest, and that's extremely important for stakeholders, and we have to report that on an annual level. So on the one hand, I think we are more brave and more consistent in activation, and on the other hand, the expectation is getting higher and higher meanwhile.
Isn't that just a sign of a better professionalism of esports? Because higher expectation means, okay, you are satisfied with what you achieved, and now I think it's normal that a big partner like DHL would like to have a higher return on investment, so to say. Is that right?
Absolutely right. Because I guess when we stepped into the esports in 2018, it was still a startup, somehow. it was very volatile. It still is very volatile, but I think as more brands are coming into that platform, as more the ecosystem is professionalizing, as more it's meant that you leave the startup level behind you, and to become a really professional entertainment platform. And with everything that is related to it. And I think that's the challenge for the esport ecosystem, that now you want to be perceived on eye level with traditional sports, but now there's also a great need to deliver against that expectation.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think esports is still a little bit wild, and I think it's part of the success and part of the secret of success. But I agree with your comments, and I think the more companies like ESL would like to have more partners, like a DAX company like DHL or others, I think it's necessary that we as well go a little bit more in this direction like traditional sports. But as I said, I think a little bit wild must be still on the radar. Yeah, now I think coming over to the situation right now, we talked about the history a bit. We have the pandemic, what is obvious. So, how did DHL handle the situation in 2020 that most of the big arena events cannot take place, and it's going in the direction of online only tournaments? How was it for you as a decision maker of DHL and in general for your company to move on with esports?
Mhm. So firstly, I think that esports per se is a digital platform. Yeah. From my point of view, the change from live events to purely online events was much more challenging in motorsports, for example. Yeah? And it was a shock, and then it needed some time that everybody recalibrated. In ESL, I had, or in esports, I had the feeling that this shock or this break was not as worse as it was in traditional sports platforms, because for you it was much easier to translate everything into online immediately, and you did a really good job in doing so. So what was missing at the end is somehow the emotion, because in live events we see a lot of emotion, and we can translate that, we can tell that stories of that emotions from the arena, and we can tell the story to the global audience following the event digitally. So now the big challenge is to create the same emotions. Yeah? And I think that's the big difference now. Yeah? It's just not just a weekend, 3-4 days. You keep the communication high, yeah, and you pick what you get from that live event. Yeah. Now tournaments are lasting for weeks sometimes, and it's quite difficult to find the peak times and to establish an engaging, entertaining communication throughout the whole tournament. So I think that is a big challenge, and it is still. And it's somehow a little bit more difficult to get in contact to the audience. But with the right measures in place, it's still quite good. However, I need to say personally, I really miss the live events.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's the same for me and for all our colleagues and so on who are working in esports. You mentioned that the emotion are a little bit, yeah, the emotion of the spectators in the end are a little bit away, because I think the teams and the players are still emotionally and really involved. But I totally agree. I think it's difficult to really communicate these emotion throughout the tournaments. But overall,
Yeah.
do you think the communication is evolving anyway. So that means, do you think esports can live with another year without live events, or do you expect big problems for the whole ecosystem? It's a little bit broader question, I know, but maybe your view on that.
I'm not expecting problems, as you said. I'm expecting a little lack of emotions, of connection to the fan itself. I'm lacking a little bit of that big pictures we have from the events, and you showed some pictures prior to our presentation, and that pictures confirm beautifully what happens in such arenas, and seeing the people interacting with our brand and being excited about the brand, the influencers, and somehow all these emotion and love behind. I think these both pictures are missing somehow. Yeah? And these were the pictures that went around the world digitally.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe we come back to that in a minute. But firstly, I would like to ask a question around more the business part. So you have, on the one hand, you mentioned a bit that in your engagement as well is a big business impact that is important for you. It's not only the communication or the marketing aspect, as well some other areas. Maybe you can explain a little bit what you mean, and how is esports and the engagement with ESL part of a business story?
So, well, you mentioned marketing aspects, and I think these are the classical marketing objectives that we all know. Is it the image transfer, reputation building, the awareness, likability, but also, what is it, potential for sales? We are not a company selling products out of a platform immediately. But definitely we see a relationship or a relation to the usage of our brand, because in esports, the younger generation, I would say, are highly e-commerce affine. And nowadays, I need to say, is it DHL Express or DHL Parcel in Germany? The e-commerce business is growing and growing, and we are participating in it. So it's definitely important to receive brand loyalty from that younger generation. However, I'm not so much talking about sales, because for us, and that's the reason why we run sponsoring in our company in the brand marketing department and not in a product marketing department. For us, the brand perception and the brand image, and together with their brand bonding somehow is very, very important. So that's what we always say: it's differentiation and emotionalization in order to establish that brand bonding from the audiences. So that's the marketing angle. When we look into the internal side of things, we work closely with our HR departments, because having such a digital affine community as a target group means that that partnership is a very important angle for HR recruitment.
Okay, interesting. So when I take a look at the general situation in esports and in ESL, I think you are one of the biggest partners, one of these, how we call it, non-endemic partners. So when you take a look at the esports industry, because you are in there since a couple of years, and you mentioned 2017, your first interaction with an arena event. But overall, what do you think? How does the next development step of esports should look like? Do you think the ecosystem is developing really ongoing? So is it growing significantly further on, or how do you expect the situation in the next years in esports?
So I personally expect that esports is growing. I would say that maybe it's not constantly growing the next 10 years, but for the next 5 years, I see a lot of potential on how it can develop further. And esports per se has a wide spectrum. Talking about mobile gaming, for example, yeah, I think might be that this is one of the next big things. We all need to look into, especially when you look into the usage of mobile devices. And I think that there's a lot of potential in it. I think that also in traditional sports and also these platforms need to look into the esports angle within their portfolio. Yeah? Or is it in football, FIFA, or is it in motorsport, any Formula One, Formula E esports series, and so on and so on? Because also these platforms, they have to look into the younger target audiences to keep the level of interest high on their property and on their traditional sports. And I think all in all, that will help to grow the esport business. Even if this traditional motorsport racing series are somehow more the niche markets, but everything helps to grow that acceptance of esports also in the maybe older generation than I am. Because that's also a very important aspect. That in esports, when you're selling your product, you mostly, when you go to brands and ask them to be a sponsor, you're talking to the older generation. That's it. Marketing departments are, I wouldn't say all of my age, but actually dealing with esports topics, we are too old for that. But maybe that means that I have to onboard some younger people, but don't send me your bios for now. But I think that's really important that you look into that. Into that expectations and your counterpart on brand side to find the right angle of communication. Sometimes you have people talking to me and I say, I don't get it. I don't get it because I'm not so deep into esport. Explain it for a normal human who's not so deeply involved into that. But I think there's a lot of potential. One thing maybe I also want to address, and that's a big wish from my end, because, especially nowadays in Corona times, I think, especially in the younger generations, they made it quite clear that their priorities have changed. So topics are like inclusion, gender equality, sustainability overall, and in all its aspects, it's becoming more and more important. And same for brands, by the way. I think nobody can just leave it away. So that's also where I see still a lot of potential in esports to look into those topics, have a really good strategy, a good sustainability strategy on board, looking into how you can partner up, in order to make it even better. Because I think we all are acting and we all want to act in the same direction. And I think there's also a lot of potential to enhance storytelling, to even getting more authentic and credible to the fan community when we start thinking jointly about such topics.
Yeah, fascinating. I think we need another hour to talk about sustainability and all the other important points, because I really agree. I think esports can do in that area a lot to push these very important initiatives. So, but I know we are running a little bit out of time. So, Christine, thanks a lot. I don't know if you would like to share your last thought or a comment on the general situation.
Well, comment on the general situation is, hopefully we can all meet personally again at live events pretty soon. I keep fingers crossed for that so much.
Thanks a lot. Very good. And I totally agree. Hopefully you are right. So thanks a lot. Thanks to all the participants, to the audience. Hopefully some insights were interesting for you. And I hope that we have a long time together, DHL and ESL. Thank you very much and have a nice evening. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.